We have Bruce Glockling, Regeneration, Head of Regeneration at Southwark Council, joining us. Bruce.
Thank you, Shona. And
Hi.
I'm going to try and be careful not to repeat too much of what you've already said when we're talking about the ADS 1.1. But just to summarise, what was Southwark looking for? We were looking for the opportunity to bring good design to the public sector beyond the companies on the existing frameworks. And we also wanted to expand the opportunities for architects to work on a new framework, many of whom had not worked in the public sector before, but were clearly doing great work in the private sector. But curiously, local authorities were not accessing this, but because we were mainly relying on existing frameworks. So what did we learn? We learned that the procurement has been a success by evaluating what architects were actually doing through case studies and interviews, rather than the written word in bid submission. And I think colleagues who were part of this in 2018-19 will recall that this was early feedback from the industry, that we needed to change the way we evaluated submissions that were coming in for frameworks. And we also learned that the new framework has been a success. It's introduced many more new companies to the public sector to produce innovative new design. However, we also learned, and I think this is probably feedback from 2020, that equality, diversity and inclusion had not been addressed satisfactorily. That many architects, particularly black-led firms and individuals, were not securing new work despite the local demographic, and in Southwark that's at least 25% black. And there was also a lack of black and ethnic minority role models in the built environment. And also there was a lack of diversity in the council's supply chains as a whole. And because of all of this, there was clearly inadequate representation of the communities in Southwark in the built environment. I think everybody realizes that architecture has always been an exclusive profession, with the door seemingly closed to smaller or more diverse practices. So it was no mean feat to try and address this. And any success clearly has the potential to be impactful across the whole profession. And I think we've already begun to see this in the submissions that we've had for our recent tenders in the last year. So by reassessing the wider implications of equality, diversity and inclusion, EDI, in our supply chains, we showed that we needed to take account of EDI in all our procurements without compromising on quality. So let's look at some outcomes. By working together with the LHC and Southwark, we were able to introduce real change in public sector procurement of architects in a relatively short period of time. This is really only taken about 2 years. And we're now seeing a positive and actually quite a sophisticated commitment to equality, diversity and inclusion in all our tenders, both for architecture and also from contractors as well. So we're looking forward to achieving good design, diversity and representation and better outcomes for local people. All departments in the council are now using the framework. So this covers new homes work, it covers work for the environment department, it covers education work. Every department is using it. And we also know that many other London authorities are also using the new framework. So this is really great news. From nothing, we've got a large number of contracting authorities gaining access to this new framework. So it provides assured work and a growing confidence from a wider group of architects of how to work and collaborate in the public sector. And with most recent tenders, particularly for our larger projects, we're seeing multiple practices coming together to bid for new work, each demonstrating their individual strengths and bringing that to their submissions. And of course, in the tenders, we're also seeing better outcomes in design. And we can actually see this even in the early stages of tender submission, which actually reflect what local people are looking for in their buildings and public realm. In terms of new work, there's a slide which I'm sure Shona will show, which is just a snapshot of work that is in our pipeline. This doesn't include work that's already on the drawing board or work that's in construction. This is new work coming forward after 2022. This is just the minimum, really, I think, of work that's coming forward. £600 million of new investment, 1,500 new homes from 2022, which is part of the council's commitment, and also many other major projects in the pipeline, covering all the various lots and value bands that Shona sent out. So we feel that the framework has been a success, but also that by the power of collaboration, Southwark and the LHC have been sufficiently agile to realise where we needed to do things differently to reflect what was actually needed to ensure that we had proper equality, diversity and inclusion in the built environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Bruce.
Bruce.
Over to Rod. Rod. Rod, I don't know if you're on mute or...
Yeah, normally people are grateful when I'm muted. Right. Right, good morning, my name is Rod Davies. I'm Procurement Manager in Housing and Modernisation Asset Management. That's the operation that manages Southwark's council houses. Where's the first slide, Shona? Right, and this is what we have, right? We have 55,000 residential units and 8,000 ancillary units that we've got to maintain and operate on a day-to-day basis, and a further, sorry, something messaging me, it's just put me off my stride. 11,000 housing units are planned. Currently, we are procuring, next slide, Shona. Thank you. A small number of £835 million worth of construction contracts. There's just 4 contracts covering the next decade. These are alliance contracts, some of the things that were referred to before. We're also planning to use, using consultancy services support this construction, in other words, through ADC and MDC, and we're starting to call off from EIS. We expect to award the first one next week, so, or at least, yeah, give notice of it. And then we have a program of term contracts for repair and maintenance of existing assets. And as you can imagine, it's quite big. We are the largest operator of lifts in any local authority, for instance, because we've got so many tower blocks. Next one, please. Where have we got to? Right. Our purpose is, and this is the thing we should never forget, we're not here to collaborate. We know that we're here to deliver warm, dry, safe, decent housing to residents, and everything else is secondary. We've really got to remember that. It's our customers. We're a business. Right, next bit. So what we've got to do is try and do that by using the resources we've got effectively and efficiently in a transparent manner that's fair to everybody, because it's public money at the end of the day, to support local residents and business communities, to improve the local economy through our contracting and maximise opportunities, and that we getting contractors to do outreach to schools and training courses and all sorts, and apprenticeships, to use resources to achieve fairer future targets, and I will repeat this endlessly, to maintain a lesson learning culture, so we take forward the lessons into designing better contracts and better tendering process to achieve all these goals. And it's a challenging environment. Right. Collaboration with LHC. Right. Initially, when I first came here a decade ago, Southwark didn't collaborate particularly with anybody outside, and we didn't actually use frameworks very much, largely because we are the elephant in the room. Because if we climb into bed with you, we're normally so big we unbalance everything. Because, you know, if you've got 55,000 council houses to sustain, you've got very big contracts. So if you've got a framework that's worth, say, I don't know, £250 million for over its term for heating and water, and we troop along and say, right, we've got a contract requirement for £176 million, we've just consumed it all. And we just crowd everybody out. So we have to have a different way of working in a way. And honestly, you would get, other than LHC who are a bit brave, some framework providers looking at us very cautiously. Equally, we tended to think to have big contracts, But the lesson for us was that was not always successful. So through the decade, we've been looking at an evolving procurement. We don't have a big reputation or a high profile reputation for innovation, but actually we are steadily trying to learn lessons all the time. And what we call the hybrid price model, Shona calls the mean, that whatever it is, price model, we evolved that because we realized that best price was actually undermining our own business. So we had to come up with a better thing. We now recognize that we've actually got to look much more at contract management, because it's okay to get good contracts, but you've got to manage them. And this has come through a lot of it. We're learning with collaborating with LHC. And I know I'm diverging from my original script, Shona. And the collaboration with LHC started at a very low level, and it was about confidence building. And all the comments that people made before about what the barriers to collaboration are, I disagree with. Actually, I think the biggest one is fear. Fear of actually opening your own mouth and telling the truth by itself. I mean, honestly. But it started at just officer to officer level when this was Jennifer Castle when she was a young woman. She's still a young woman, but she was very, very fresh off the boat and started, and we just got talking. And that's how we explored how we could work together. And that's how we built the relationship. And from there, it went forward. Wasn't really management resistance particularly, it was just it takes time. But also the issue is that LHC needed to understand our perspective, not just deliver their perspective, but understand it takes us a long time to make a decision. Right, but what we can deliver is more expertise, and through collaboration with LHC, pulling on their expertise and resources, more bang per buck. All right, go on, do the next bit. Right. As has been mentioned earlier by David, framework management. One of the things that we did do, we're shifting today, and we're looking much more at contracts management and contracts compliance, but we reviewed the frameworks we actually used, and we're actually, I don't know whether it's surprised or horrified is the correct word we came across, we would arrive at. Because we were shocked to discover that there are framework providers out there who are listing currently companies that have ceased operation. They're either bankrupt or been wound up or whatever, we don't know. But why would you do that? That means that when our officers go to try and call off from them, they're trying to call off from companies that don't actually exist. Somebody's obviously not monitoring it. Now, that's not the case with LHC, but what it does say is you need to, the framework providers must be active and manage their frameworks. Otherwise, frameworks lose credibility. The heart of effective framework management comes through engagement and collaboration, and it starts right at the beginning of its whole life about designing a framework that it's fit for purpose. And you can only design it if you engage with the market and you engage with the client and you engage with all the users. And out of that design, you will then create an attractive framework with attractive documents that 10 bidders can complete efficiently and economically to tell you the information. If you then effectively manage it, then people use it and more money comes in. And if you learn the lessons, then that will shape your future frameworks. Right, you want to talk about next one. This is the money we spend. I understand everyone's interested in the cash. This is just a sample of some of the term contracts we have, and we would look to using frameworks to deliver these. We ask ourselves the question, is it better for us to procure a contract ourselves, deliver it in-house where we can, or use a framework? And the rationale is, what is the best fit? What is going to give us the best option? Hence, through collaboration, we actually can find that we can encourage LHC and other frameworks providers to create frameworks that we can call off on and concentrate on the areas where our expertise is best placed. Next, go on. Right. And so we spend a lot of money. So the decision, other things we're looking at now, which we would perhaps look at frameworks and so on for, well, this one not, but spending money is £835 million for the 4 contracts. 10 years. Next one, another £20 million at lift maintenance. That could easily go out to a framework, or it could go for a term contract. Another one to look, I think this is roofs, is it? Yeah, roofing and rainwater at 11 million. Another £16 million. The next one for fire protection contracts. Again, we could look to, potentially, we could look to frameworks. These are all recent approvals. Right. So we are now, I think there's been a change has occurred. In the old days, we would either procure ourselves, and that is make a contract, or we would buy into something and arrange that we would go to an existing framework. But existing frameworks tended not to be fit for purpose for our business. So the next, what's evolved in this is a sustaining element of collaboration, is to collaborate, because collaborate is ostensibly a hybrid between the two. We have a direct influence to shape the future framework to our business needs, as well as tapping into the expertise and resources of the framework provider to deliver the framework and an environment that we can trade in. That enables us to create a user-centric arrangement facility that focuses on our needs and the need, and at the end of the day, the ability to deliver services to residents. It ensures us capacity, and capacity is not just in, is it able to deliver, I don't know, bank or book, but also it's backup, because one of the risks we face is what happens if a company goes into receivership. We need a ready backup in there, which a framework with multiple providers potentially offers us. It reduces some of that risk, and that gives us also the assurance. But it does require an open and collaborative relationship where we do share lesson learning, and it opens up opportunities for us to do things differently. Engineering inspection services came from the fact as the original arrangement wasn't, what we had as a contract wasn't fit for purpose. Through discussing with the opportunity with LHC, we realized how much we can do this a different way. We can actually change the market and remove from the market, in fact, a stage which inhibited the link between the contractor, the service provider, and the consumer ourselves, because we were working through intermediaries. And that's been really eye-opening about how the market is. It's brought in a radically different way of looking at the market. Go on, next bit. And so ultimately, I would say, although the reports are being published and they're talking about the goal, actually collaboration is occurring already. The game has changed and the market has changed. And it's through this that LHC and ourselves are actually creating a new reality of collaboration and demonstrating that it works and it benefits everybody. Collaboration is very much the new world, but it requires fundamental change and culture change for many. It means we're going to have to be braver, and we're going to have to engage, to challenge, and that's challenge other people and challenge ourselves. Actually, one of the tough bits, be honest. There are limits to what we can do. There are things that are deficient. Be willing to share and get over that thing that we think we're special. We're not. We do exactly the same as the next authority or the next contractor and so on. And understand each other. And understanding each other is not just understanding each other's perspectives, but actually some of our feelings. One of the things is, when dealing with, and I thought about this morning as I was coming in, one of the most horrible experiences I ever had to do was a feedback session with a failed contractor who we would have shared a lot of lesson learning to, but they were just so aggressive and so threatening and just didn't, I assume they intended to be that, but the barriers just came down, the shutters came down, we weren't going to give them anything. And actually they were making a fundamental mistake in their bidding. It was just page one of their submission all the way to the last page. They made the same mistake all the way through and therefore lost the award. And with that, I'll shut up because people have normally heard enough of me.
Great, thank you so much, Rod. I just want to say I love the phrase that you used, "We're not special," because I mean, I don't know whether some people might feel uncomfortable with that recognition, but I think it's quite liberating to realise that, to realise there is nothing special about what we do.
I would come back on that and just say there is a problem. I think it's less so in Southwark. We don't have the luxury of loads of money to go and do things, or even an unpressured environment. But I have worked for other authorities where they literally tell themselves, "Oh, we're special. You can't understand us." 99% of everything we do is exactly the same as everybody else has done. And it's the same way as human beings. You've all got most of you have got one head, one body, two arms, two legs. They're the same. It doesn't matter where you are on the globe. It's what makes the world boring.
Brilliant. Thank you so much,
All right.
Rod.
Right.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. Thank you.